all of us will be watching with a lot of hope and pride and a little bit of nervousness and trepidation as well. The reason? The final stage of a mission like Chandrayaan-3, the landing phase is the most complicated and the most difficult. Number two, the Luna 25 mission of the Russian Space Agency, which was racing Chandrayaan to the moon and would have landed on the 21st of August, crashed, unfortunately, before it could hit the lunar surface. And three, in 2019, Chandrayaan-2, the earlier attempt to land at the moon, had heartbreakingly failed in the final stages of the mission. To discuss all of this, Chandrayaan-3, the mission, how it has gone so far, and what happens from now on, I have with me here Amitabh Sinha, science editor of the Indian Express. Amitabh, welcome.
Thank you.
So, first of all, would you walk us through the journey of Chandrayaan-3 from the time it took off on the 14th of July and its journey to the moon, and it's about to make a landing on Wednesday?
Right. So, as you remember, Chandrayaan-3 took off on July 14th. And after the launch, it went into what is known as Earth orbit. So it started to go around the Earth. And progressively raised its orbit around the Earth. So it continued to go around Earth for a few days, after which it moved into what is known as translunar orbit, which is moving towards the moon. So once it was launched, it started to go around the Earth, and then
at one point it
moved away from Earth, and then it started moving towards the moon. And then it got into what is known as the moon orbit. Right? And then as of now, it's going around the moon. That's the preferred way of ISRO to go to the moon. Other agencies do it differently. With more powerful rockets, you can go directly to the moon orbit as well. But we do it in this manner. It's more economical, it saves a lot of fuel, and it is also something that we have been doing quite well. So that's our preferred way. We don't have a very powerful rocket ourselves which can deposit the spacecraft directly into the moon orbit. So this is our preferred way of doing it, and it's been quite successful. It takes a little bit longer, but then it's fine.
So is that how Luna 25 headed to the moon, with a more powerful rocket?
No, Luna 25 actually went directly to the moon. They had a more powerful rocket, so they did not go around the Earth. So they went to the lunar orbit directly, and that's why they took just about 5 days to reach there. And then, once you reach there, of course, then you have to get into the moon orbit and go around the moon, and then progressively come down, and then attempt the descent. So that part is the same for both spacecraft, but the way you reach the moon lunar orbit, that is slightly different.
So, and what exactly happened to Luna 25?
So the exact reasons are still probably being analyzed, but what Roscosmos said in its
statement,
the Russian Space Agency, what they said in the statement on Sunday is that while it was trying to move into the pre-landing orbit, that is the orbit from which the final descent to moon begins. So the landing for Luna 25 was supposed to happen on Monday, 21st of August, and on Sunday it was supposed to move into that what is called as the pre-landing orbit. So in that process, it seems what the statement says is that the impulse was the actual impulse that was recorded was not what was needed, slightly more.
So it sort of went off script.
Yeah. So basically, the impulse is the change in momentum. So the velocity and the direction were not exactly according to what was script. What was meant to be. So there was some problem in the maybe with the speed at which it was going, and finally it crash landed. So
Amitabh, I'm curious to know. you've been writing and we've been also reading, Luna 25 was the mission after Luna 24, which was sent back in 1976.
Yes.
That was a Soviet mission.
Yeah.
Suddenly, after 47 years, and in the middle of this war that Russia is fighting, what was the need for Russia to make this lunar attempt? Is there a reason for it, or is it just a part of the scientific progression of space exploration? How does this work?
So the original date for Luna 25 was before the war.
Okay.
So it got delayed. Like space missions often do get delayed because of constant improvements that have to be made. So it got delayed and it was launched. If you see, a lot of countries are actually doing moon missions. Russia is not alone. In fact, given the history of the Soviet space program, it's surprising that Russia did not attempt the space missions or moon missions in the last 1 decade or 2 decades, considering it has very good record in the past. But now that a lot of other countries had joined the race to the moon, Russia was also planning to send one. And as I said, it was originally scheduled before the war broke out, but eventually it happened just now. The Luna, as you rightly pointed out, the Luna 25, the name actually signifies a continuation from the earlier Luna programs. Right. So there is a 47-year difference between the previous Luna and this Luna 24 and Luna 25. But it was meant to signify a continuation of that Soviet space program, hugely successful program at that point of time.
Okay, so coming back to our own mission, Amitabh. So ISRO has given a fairly precise time and date for the landing. I mean, we said that 23rd August around 6 p.m. India. And we also know that there is a certain a place, a landing site that has been selected. So we'll come to that later. But first, on what basis is this landing time decided? One, and two, is this etched in stone? I mean, is it that we will? What happens if we cannot, for whatever reason, land at this time?
So it's not etched in stone. You can have different time slots in which different possible time slots in which you can make a landing. They have selected it for, maybe there must be some purpose selecting this particular slot, but it's not as if you are not able to land during this time, you won't be able to. In fact, you can attempt a landing later as well, but not if you have progressed too much ahead in the landing.
Correct.
Right. So if you have already started the landing process, then you of course can't go back. But
it's a point of no return.
Yeah. So, but once from the orbit itself, if you haven't initiated the landing process, you can of course find another slot, because this spacecraft, you remember, it's still going around the moon. Right. It has to come back to the position from where the landing is suitable, also from where it's suitable to reach that landing site that has been selected. So after a certain time period, you can probably attempt again. But as I said, of course, once you have initiated it, then there's no going back after that.
That's right. And the spacecraft, I'm sure, lands something like an aircraft. I mean, there's a vertical descent as well as a horizontal. Is that right?
Yes. So while it is going around the moon, it's a circular motion. It's mostly horizontal speed that's going. At the time of descent, there would not be any horizontal movement. It would be vertical, but that's the last few seconds. Uh-huh. So during the start of the descent and the final descent, of course, there would be progressively a reduction in horizontal velocity and a slight movements vertically. But when it's finally landing, the final 3, 4, 5 seconds, it would be landing vertically. Okay. Not like this, but like this.
Okay. And Amitabh, Chandrayaan-3 is attempting landing at about 68 degrees south latitude on the moon, and we say that this is going to the south pole of the moon. Two questions: does this have something to do with the lunar day and the lunar night, and why the south pole?
So South Pole is interesting. I mean, as you rightly point out, it's not exactly the polar region, but it's much further from the equator.
That's right.
And it's the furthest from the equator that any spacecraft has reached, and that's why it's often referred to as. But 70 degrees or 68 degrees south is not exactly the polar region. So what has happened is we've had so many spacecraft landing on the moon. There have been lander missions, there have been rover missions, there have been sample return missions wherein spacecraft have taken the samples from the moon and come back for those materials to be analyzed. But none of the landing has happened in the South Pole. Or near the polar region. The interesting part about that area is, one, of course, it's an unknown terrain, so you need to know the entire terrain of the moon to use it more purposefully in future. The other part, of course, is this prospect of water. Inside the craters near the polar region, the concentration of water molecules is supposed to be more compared to the equatorial region. Because in fact, Luna 25 would have given a lot of time spent a lot of time getting more information about the presence of water. Luna 25 again was landing around the same place. Not exactly the same place, but around the same latitude. No, it was
about 70 degrees south.
It was 70 degrees a little further south from where Chandrayaan-3 is landing. Of course, the landing sites are separated physically. They are separated several hundred kilometers apart, but around the same latitude. And one of the main objectives for Luna 25 was to get more information about the presence of water molecules in that area. Chandrayaan-3 is not doing that this time. Okay. Chandrayaan-2 had an instrument, in fact, which would have looked for water. Chandrayaan-3 is doing other work. Chandrayaan-3 is focused more on trying to find the elemental composition, what exactly is the moon's surface composed of, what is the concentration of different kind of elements. So those kind of things is the main focus of Chandrayaan-3. So two reasons why South Pole, where
close to the South
Pole is important. One, of course, as I said, it's uncharted territory. You need to know more about the entire moon's
and
surface.
We will be, surface. All goes right, fingers crossed. We will be the first mission.
We'll, of course, be the first one.
Luna 25 would have been.
Now that Luna 25 has unfortunately moved out, we would probably be the first one to land there.
Yeah. So, and okay, Amitabh, just you said that it's already it's about to begin its descent. How exactly will this, of course, it's going really fast, and it is going to come down at a speed which will ensure that it doesn't actually crash. So the slowing down will happen by firing, what do you call it, thrusters. So that's towards the moon's surface. And which essentially, by Newton's third law, that if there are thrusters fired in that direction, the rocket will be retarded and it will slowly slow down.
So that's the braking mechanism, basically. If you are moving in the direction, if you have to accelerate, you fire thrusters in the direction opposite to your movement.
So that's how rockets take off.
That's how rockets take off. If you have to decelerate or you have to brake, you have to fire thrusters in the direction that you are moving, and that's how you slow down your speed. So that is what will happen here as well. You progressively slow down your. Right now, I'm not aware of the exact speed with which it is moving, but it would be moving several times the speed of your normal commercial airliner. A normal commercial airliner travels somewhere around between 600 to 800 kilometers an hour. Some of them go even faster, but usually 600 to 800 kilometers an hour. The spacecraft Chandrayaan-3 would be moving 2 to 3 times, 4 times more than from that
tremendous speed.
You have to come down to a speed which is not more than say the walking speed of a person.
So that's about 5-6 kilometers an hour.
5-6 kilometers. Actually more than that. So this Chandrayaan-3 is actually designed to withstand higher velocities while it is landing. I think what ISRO said was 3 kilometers per second. 3 kilometers per 3 kilometers per second would be quite.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of speed.
It'll probably be 3 kilometers per hour.
Sorry, it must be 3 meters per second.
3 meters per second.
3 meters per second,
which
which
reasonable,
is which is again, I mean, it's quite fast. If you imagine this is 800 kilograms of spacecraft, the lander and rover. You're moving at 3 meters per second and landing at that, you have to have very, very sturdy legs to be able to do it. So Chandrayaan-2 was designed.
So it lands on legs, is it?
It would land on
4
legs. So it has to be very, very sturdy to be able to withstand that kind of speed. 3 meters per second is quite fast. That way.
So, and Amitabh, since you say that it's going to land on legs, so as it comes onto the lunar surface, it's heavily cratered, I'm sure. There are boulders. Now, just as when you're walking, if your leg falls in a crater, you may twist your ankle and God forbid, you may break it. So I mean, we are all watching with bated breath how these 4 legs land. So what precautions have been taken to ensure that?
So there are onboard cameras. As it, you have a fair idea of the moon's surface from here, right?
That site.
That site. So you know what are the big craters or big stones that are lying. But as you get near to it, even a small stone can topple you over, isn't it? And those kind of small stones or a pebble here and there, that is not visible from here, that you cannot account for. So that is something that the spacecraft would have to look out for and avoid on its own. Where is a small depression, where is an unstable terrain, where is a small stone lying. So those kind of things it is programmed to avoid. Even Chandrayaan-2 was quite programmed to avoid. And it can, as it moves nearer to the surface, it can its cameras would be activated. It would be constantly viewing the landing area, and it is capable of making adjustments, even last minute adjustments to move around. In fact, now Chandrayaan-3 can move around to a much greater degree compared to Chandrayaan-2, precisely to make it, enable it to land safely on the moon's surface. So it can find its way, it can look whether this
can maneuver.
It can maneuver on its own within a certain limit, of course,
wonderful.
But it can maneuver. It can look for a suitable site and then get down.
And since you said that the cameras will be switched on, I mean, this is the childlike excitement. Can we see Chandrayaan-3?
No, we can't.
No, we can't.
We can't. Well, once we can't see the landing process. We cannot. We won't be able to see
it's actually hitting the lunar
surface. Lander actually hitting the lunar surface. Once it's landed, you can see the rover coming out definitely. So you have cameras which will see so after landing, the rover, which is housed within the lander, the rover is supposed to come out and then crawl on the moon's surface for 14 days at a very slow speed, slower than.
So why 14 days?
14 days is the equivalent time, which is the daytime on the moon. The moon has what is known as lunar day and lunar night. Basically, it extends to 14 days on Earth.
So one lunar day is 14 Earth days.
So it would be 14 days on Earth would be one full day of daytime wherein the sun is shining. Right. Then it goes into night time again, which extends.
And why do we need the sun to shine?
We need the sun to shine mainly because all our instruments are solar powered. So we need the sun to be able to power our instruments, and that's why the life of this mission, the rover and lander, is 14 days. Because then we get into night time, and night time on moon is very cold. It's somewhere around, it's less than 100 degrees centigrade. It's 120, 130 degrees centigrade below zero. So at that temperatures, if your electronics is not specifically designed to withstand those kind of temperatures, you can design those kind of things. But if it's not specifically designed to withstand those temperatures, your electronics would freeze, it would cease to work, right? So, and once your batteries go down, so that once the day begins again after 14 days.
So when does this particular lunar day, when Chandrayaan is going to, when does that start?
It begins right on August 23rd
so
itself. We are landing at daytime, at dawn.
At dawn in the morning. Oh, that's interesting.
To be able to maximize our stay on the lunar surface. Now, Luna 25, for example, was supposed to stay on moon for 1 year, but then it was also, instruments were powered by sun, but it was also carrying a generator, and that generator would have provided power to the instruments during night time. It would have also kept the instruments warm during night time. So you can make those kind of provisions, and that's how some other missions have also survived beyond 1 day. You can design it like that. For Chandrayaan-3, it was designed that 1 lunar day is sufficient to carry out the kind of observations that we wanted to make.
So you're saying that, say around, if all goes well, say around 6 p.m. or maybe a little later, the lunar module of the Chandrayaan-3 mission lands at its designated site, maybe a little here or there, depending on what we have there. After how long will the rover descend, and how will it come out?
So the rover descends after some time. I think what happens is when it lands on the surface, it generates a lot of dust. Because there is no atmosphere on the moon. So
the dust particles are going to stay.
Dust particles are going to stay for pretty long. So you have to wait for the dust particles to dissipate.
Literally wait for the dust to settle.
Dust to settle down. Once it settles down, I'm not sure how much time it takes, but maybe it takes a few hours. I'm not sure about that. But once that happens, then you have an automated sort of a door that opens up within the lander, and this rover, there is a slide that comes out, and then rover comes out, and then it slides onto the surface. That part of the process would actually be visible to everyone. So ISRO actually, I think they made an announcement yesterday. They said, that rover coming out.
So basically, there's probably a camera on the lander
on the lander
as it opens and the rover comes out.
As the rover comes out, that would be
visible. Be fascinating. That would be fascinating. So and the rover was called Pragyan the last time.
The last time. This time, ISRO is not using the names. A lot of other people are continue to use the name of Vikram for the lander and Pragyan for the rover. ISRO is not using. Curiously, it's not using the names again, so we have not been using it, but a lot of people are calling it Vikram and Pragyan as well.
So and once the rover, call it Pragyan or call it whatever, once it comes out, so what sort of experiments are we looking to carry out on the moon for the 14 days that it's going to be there?
So mostly focused on, as I said, finding out the elemental composition and the concentration of different elements on the moon. But there are other things as well, just trying to find trying to map the terrain. So that would be another one, the elevations, the depressions, how is it placed. Also, the kind of seismic activity that probably is present on the moon surface. Then there would be experiments which also decide how hard or soft the moon surface is. So in future, for example, if you have to carry out a digging exercise on the moon, for example, you need to know how much power would be required to dig it. So those kind of information needs to be collected, not just by this mission, but all subsequent missions from different countries also. The idea is to get as much information about the moon as possible, so that when it is time to start utilizing the resources of the moon, you know how to do it. So those are the kind of information that would be collected by this mission as well.
Fascinating. So last big picture question, Amitabh. How does this fit in? This is a part of India's space exploration program, which has been going on for a long time. How does this fit in with the larger, wider goals of India's space exploration program?
So it's just it's just the start,
Okay.
right? And of course, India hasn't announced the follow-up missions to Chandrayaan-3,
Okay.
but they would be most probably once it lands successfully this time. You would hear about Chandrayaan-4,
Fourth.
Chandrayaan-5 as well. In fact, if Chandrayaan-2 had been successful, Chandrayaan-3 would have been a sample return mission. As in Chandrayaan-3, the spacecraft would have gone to the moon, collected something, and then come back to Earth. China has done it with the Chang'e program. It has China did a similar kind of thing. They had an orbiter mission to start with, then they had a lander and rover, and they had a sample return mission. We had a similar program. We did the orbiter. Unfortunately, our lander did not succeed the first time. We are doing the lander now, and the next subsequent mission, whenever it is announced, it's not public as yet, but obviously we are not going to stop here. There will be Chandrayaan 4, 5, and 6 or whatever. We'll also have some collaborative programs. One collaborative lunar mission is already on with Japan. It's called I'm forgetting it's called LUPEX. So that is a joint collaboration between India and Japan. That's supposed to go in a year or two. Once this mission is over, probably we'll hear more about the LUPEX mission, and probably it will be redesigned considering what happens on this mission as well. But that's surely happening, and that's already announced in the public domain. And there are, I'm sure, after this mission, you'll hear more about the follow-up missions as well. So this is just the start. In the meanwhile, you have missions going elsewhere as well. So Aditya mission is going.
Aditya L1,
The Aditya L1 mission, which is going to the sun. That's our first mission to the sun, not exactly to the sun, but going to a point from where you can observe the sun. Right. So that's happening later this year itself, and then you already have a mission planned to Venus. So that would be an orbiter mission. So that's in 2 years' time. But surely you would see more Chandrayaan missions after this.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Amitabh, for this really comprehensive, really wonderful analysis and explanation of the Chandrayaan-3 mission. All of us are going to be watching with bated breath Wednesday, 23rd August, around 6 p.m. or thereabouts. Please follow all our coverage, our video coverage, our print coverage on our website, our social media handles, our YouTube channel, and we hope that you will stay with us on this journey as we continue to bring this coverage to you. Thank you.
Thank you.